Hello gays, this is your friend Saiyan Paradox Audio Fanfic and we are back in new fanfic. What if Dragon Ball Gohan was exposed as an alien, hunted by humanity, and forced to fight the entire world? Part 3. Gohan opened his eyes slowly, regretting right after. The world seemed to be spinning and it'd make him lose his balance, but he never fell down as Piccolo grabbed him. Immediately he put his right hand on his mouth, as if trying to contain his urge to throw up. The Namek, noticing it, rushed him to the nearest tree, allowing Gohan to put it all out. Easy there, Piccolo said to him while patting his back in a friendly way, as if to light the sickness of his student. Gohan panted when finally nothing else got out of his stomach, and sat on the cold floor of the lookout. Are you feeling better? The half-breed took a deep breath before nodding slowly. Dad told me it could happen, but his hands went to his spiked hair and stopped on the back of his head. I didn't know it was that intense. Piccolo nodded after patting his student's back again. Well, for how long it can happen? Gohan shrugged. He told me that he didn't have this side effect, but his mentors told him it would probably just happen once. A silly smile appeared on his mouth. His father was something else for martial arts. Well, at least you now are able to use the technique. Piccolo smiled widely to his pupil, and Gohan chuckled. Seems like it. Vital yelled in frustration as she didn't manage to lift herself off the ground. She was trying to put her ki out as Kuririn told them, but it was as hard as when she first started to learn martial arts. She looked at Sharpener with narrowed eyes. He was able to lift 2 centimeters off the ground. It wasn't much, but it was more than her. She looked at Kuririn, who was for a few minutes now looking at a specific way with a frown, but soon enough he shrugged and looked at his pupils again. Arasa was now trying to pull her ki out. Yes, she didn't want to at first, but when she heard that they could really fly using it, the blondie changed her mind. But bringing the energy out without even train one day was nearly impossible. Knowing that, Kuririn instructed the basics to her, and she had to train every morning before trying to find her own ki. It was exhaustive to say the least. After checking on her, the now master of 3 teenagers walked to the more experienced pupils. Good work, Sharpener. You managed to float on the first day. He held a huge smile. He was really proud of the boy. Now Vital, I think you need to stop to compare yourself with your friend here. He said with a raised eyebrow, his words making her blush. She didn't do it on purpose, her nature was just that competitive. I'm not sure how. I'm just competitive. I know. I kinda see a young me in you. That's why I'm telling you to go in your peace. He placed his hand on her shoulder in a friendly way. Meanwhile, Arasa got tired and lay down, her eyes facing the bright and blue sky. The girl then narrowed her eyes as a few black dots made its way into her sight. Her curiosity only grew as they seemed to stop right on top of them. Kuririn, how many people do you know that can fly? Her eyes didn't let go of the dots, even after Kuririn answered her. A few. Why? He then followed her gaze and found the dots. His first reaction was to try and feel if those dots had a ki. Getting surprised when there was none. A bad feeling came from that. I don't think that those things are living beings. He stated matter of fact, and his group looked at him with interest. Why you think that? Sharpener asked, looking up right after. Kuririn thought for a moment. Every living thing has a ki. With proper training you can feel it and recognize to whom it belongs. He crossed his arms. Those things doesn't have a ki. And I don't have a good experience with things that doesn't have it, well in the past. For their surprise one of them feels down of the sky, landing in front of them. The bald monk couldn't hold back his surprise, sure he had seen that before, but now it was different. In front of him stood number 17, using the same clothes as the one he knew used in the past, but the eyes, that he wasn't able to see before, were as red as the old keeper's. 17. No, you're not him. The teenagers looked at him with a confused look, but soon looked at the so-called 17. his eyes shined red, and scanned all of them at the same time. Humans, please stay here, in safety, while we clean the near village. With that he flew upward, following the other keepers at distance. Immediately Kuririn ran inside their moving house, a frown present on his face, being followed by his group. He then turned the television on and put into a news channel. His eyes widened in shock as Wiki's speech was being reprised. The woman that lead the news emphasized the part about the half-aliens. Slowly he let the remote control fall from his hand. A loud sound was made with the impact. Oh, but for his surprise it got worse. We just received a video that apparently was made right after Wiki's announcement. It is all over the internet, and its success is due to a shocking revelation. Kuririn frowned, as the trio with him. What could possibly the video shows that was so shocking? We now present to you all the video nominated as, the reveal of Golden Fighter. What? The bald man couldn't hold back his voice, that surely wasn't good. The video started to play. It was a village, not that big, with clearly aliens and half-aliens running in fear from the keepers. Soon one person, a male, rushed over and stopped in front of a few keepers. His face was full of scars, but it couldn't fool Kuririn. He knew it was Gohan, and he felt guilty looking at how his face ended up. He came back to his senses when the teenager's voice came out. It sounded a little different, but it was still his, easily to identify if you knew him since he was 4. Everyone gather together. I'll take you all out of here. Why should we trust you? Someone yelled where the aliens and half-aliens gathered. By the way Gohan was acting, the monk saw how much the kid grew up in such a little time. Again he has to deal with things a teenager shouldn't. I'm so sorry Gohan. What happened next in the TV was a shock to the three at his side. Half-alien. The metallic voice came out, but the video wasn't done yet. Because, I am the Gold Fighter. Kuririn looked to Gohan's friends, unsure how they'd react at their friend being the hero. Vital was clearly shocked. It was her partner in crime fighting after all, and he showed to the world his face, what now made sense to her why the boy had a visor to cover it. Sharpener was with widened eyes, shocked by the scars, and Arasa had a similar look. Soon enough his bloody suit was caught in the camera, and it was cut when he teleported. Kuririn wanted to smile as Gohan used his father's technique, but he couldn't. All he could think about now was his deformed face. Why did he show up his face? Vital yelled as she was so angry. Now all that he said to her went down. The Gold Fighter once said to me that he wouldn't tell anyone his true identity because he wanted to let his life in private. Kuririn blinked. She was referring to Gohan still as Gold Fighter. She didn't, perhaps, notice who he was. Were the scars really capable of making his face unknown even to his friends? Well, he doesn't have an ordinary face. Everyone will know who he is immediately. Sharpener was with crossed arms. Something did feel familiar to him on that face, but it seems he wasn't able to connect it to a person. But his suit was covered in blood. Maybe those scars, were they made when his visor shattered? Arasa asked to Kuririn, who sighed in defeat, nodding to confirm it. Seems so. He then swallowed as he makes a decision. You all stay here. I'll go get the 60 Dragon Ball by myself. Walking to where the radar was, he was fast in grabbing it, and even despite the claims against what he had just said, Kuririn dashed outside. His students followed him, but as soon as they got there he was already flying in a fast speed. All the trio could see now was a faint dot into the distant sky. Damn! Vital yelled while showing her fists at him. 18 was now with narrowed eyes at the new aliens Gohan brought to the lookout. They were freaking out as soon as their eyes saw her, and panic took over once again. Clicking her tongue in annoyance, she felt her temper rise to a risky level. The android was really upset to be compared to mere robots that were nothing more than copies of her and her brother. Like those failures are something to be afraid of. She stormed out, walking away with Marin behind her. Gohan's suite dropped. Sure, the original androids were far stronger than the keepers, but they were strangely getting more powerful. His Kamehameha wave should had destroyed them, but instead only their arms were damaged. And on top of that they had that annoying ability to drain energy. It was the worst part to Gohan. Well, they were greater in number too. Why did you brought us to a place that have that thing? Someone yelled and Gohan sighed. He didn't have time to think about what would happen once they saw 18. Look, she's not like them. She was made years ago, and she's not bad. But what intrigues me is why the keepers look like her and her brother. He tried to calm them, but his words seemed to make it worse. So they are a research for the keepers. Gohan sighed again. This wasn't the way he wanted things to go. For his surprise, it was Zera who calmed everyone. She is a good soul. She now was by Gohan's side, facing all the others. I can see it. Most of you know about my ability, so just trust me. Even with the calm way she spoke, the teenager noticed her serious features. For his surprise, the talk died after that. Den took that chance to ask Mr. Popo to show the place for their visitors, and the young Kami stood near Gohan. It was an awkward silence as neither of them talked, the fight they had a few days ago still having an effect on both. I'm sorry, they said in unison, looking at each other right after. No, I am sorry. Once more they talked at the same time, but now they had to hold back a laugh, what came out as fast as they tried not to. No, I was wrong. I overreacted, so take it easy. Gohan said with a hand on his friend's shoulder, a big sun smile glued on his face. Den smiled too. And I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have expulsed you. I overreacted. Well, they knew each other for years now, it was just easy for them to forgive each other's mistakes, both were still learning the ways of life after all. Also, I'm sorry for the storm. I swear I'll not make it to you again. Gohan chuckled at that. His friend was really something else. That was incredibly, to tell you the truth. I never knew you could do that. Den blushed at the compliment. He studied so hard since he got on Earth that sometimes he really didn't know he could do such things. Well, he wouldn't tell Gohan about it, he wanted to act cool. Eventually the aliens were back from their little trip with Mr. Popo, who was, as Gohan noticed, really happy for having guests. He kept answering questions and helping the ones that needed something, and that made both Den and Gohan happy. Piccolo was looking at everything with interest between his mental training and monitoring the guests. It was when a yell got both Namekian's attention. It was coming from below them, and with a second yell they recognized to be Yajirobe. What is it? Den asked, worried, and for his surprise the man asked for Gohan. Put Gohan on the line. We need to talk to him now. Raising one eyebrow he gestured to Gohan to get closer. His hand was now on the young Kami's shoulder. I'm listening, Yajirobe. What's up? They filmed you this afternoon, when you turned into the Golden Fighter. It's all over the internet and news. Gohan felt his heart ache. If the world now knew about him, and his face, he was grounded to the lookout, and the worst is that his friends may have recognized him. Damn it. Thank you, Yajirobe, I'll see what I can do about it. He soon cut the talk and sat down on the stairs somewhere on the lookout. Den got closer to him, also thinking in a way to help his friend. Many things started to get into his way of thinking, being the majority how he'd end, well, captured or, in the worst case scenario, dead. He growled in annoyance. Why didn't he cover his face? Stupid Saiyan blood. Once I get into a fight I forget everything else. Arasa gave up on waiting and went to check the news of the Golden Fighter with Sharpener. While Vital was receiving calls from Satan City, most of them asking if she knew about his whereabouts. Even her father called, as he always did, to check if she was fine. He was the only one, aside from Bulma, that knew where she truly was. At first he was against it, but when she said that he couldn't let her friend alone, and that she'd use the opportunity to find other martial artists over the world, he gave in. But now, With the new keepers around, he seemed odd. What could possibly happen to make him like this? Sweet pea, please reconsider coming back. It's been almost 2 months already, and these robots that look alike those, anyway, please come back. His voice was full of appeal, but she won't give up. She was near to find Gohan. Dad, please, I'll not go back. She sighed as she sat down on their couch, rolling her eyes as Sharpener looked at her. Her father really was something else when he wanted her to go along with his desires. Besides, we are close to finding Gohan. I'll not go back until I find him. What came next made her surprised. She never thought her father would ask something like that. I wanted to ask it before, but do you feel something for this boy? You're acting strange since you meet him. She felt her cheeks burn. How could her father know about it? Hercule, on the other hand, wasn't stupid. Since his daughter got home from school a few months ago, he knew that something was off. She had this urge to find out secrets about the new kid that joined her school. It would be fine if she wasn't that deep into digging his life. It was soon enough that Hercule noticed the girl blushing whenever she talked about him. Her obsession for him turned into something else, and his daughter seemed to know what that was. He surely knew too. Vital, still blushing, turned her back to her friends, trying to hide her embarrassing red cheeks. And no, Dad. She looked at her friends with the corner of her eyes, and saw Arasa smiling devilishly to her. She sweet dropped. It's nothing like that, her father sighed. You know I'm not stupid, right? But I also know when a person, my own daughter to be precise, has feelings for a boy. She looked down. I'm sorry, Dad. What you said is true, but she closed her eyes. She was sure Gohan didn't like her back. On the rare occasions they were left alone, courtesy of Arasa of course, he acted normal, despite her being all shy and nervous. She then stood up, walking outside to have more privacy. Sure, her friends knew about her affection towards their male friend, but she was still shy on that subject. I'm sure it's one-sided. Even so, I want to see him. I have to see with my own eyes that the person I like is alright, so I can't go back yet. She now rested her backs at the moving house. Her father sighed again. He knew that he'd never be able to change her mind. Just make sure to stay away from those robots. They bring me bad memories. She then frowned. Did her father see them somewhere before? What do you mean? You mentioned something about them earlier too. She heard her father curse on the other side. Dad, please answer me. I saw them back at the Cell Games. That monster threw up a female and a male type. I'm not sure why it happened though. Vital frowned more. Her father usually avoided the games from 7 years ago, but now he was talking about it. That's why I have a bad feeling about Wiki. Stay away from him. A sound of a telephone ringing made its ways to her ear. I have to go, sweet pea. Please take care and good luck, okay? I love you. She smiled. You too, father. I love you too. After hanging up, she stood there, looking at the afternoon sky. Memories of when Gohan first appeared into their school made she giggle. Eventually, the memory of the last time into his house came up. First, he hugged her. She could still remember his strong arms around her torso, his smell also present. Then it was when she, the girl, was still impressed with herself for doing such a thing, hugged him near the fire pit. She couldn't hold back the weak voice that came right after, some tears that came out. Gohan, where are you? Gohan, where are you? Dend looked behind as he heard a girly voice that came to him. It sounded like a prayer to him, and maybe it was why he was able to hear it. Looking at his friend again, he sighed, worried. They still were thinking about what to do with his alter ego, but for some reason the Demi-Saiyan suddenly looked serious. He put both hands covering his mouth, in a serious glare that was almost burning the floor of the lookout as he spoke. Say, Dend. The Namek looked at him with curiosity. Yeah. Gohan then looked at him, his seriousness never letting go of his semblance. If the whole world saw the video, you don't think that she saw it too, right? It took a while to Den notice who he was talking about, but when his mind clicked he paled. If she did. Gohan closed his eyes. I'm screwed. Mom will kill me for sure this time. Den's sweat dropped. He knew Chi-Chi too well to know how she had control over her family. I just hope she doesn't show up here. For their surprise, Piccolo was the one who spoke. Well, she is on her way already. I can feel her. I'm dead. Gohan spoke after hiding his head on his knees. Den couldn't hold it and laughed. Bulma pouted, her arms resting on her desk that, for once in a lifetime, was without any projects on it. To put it simply, she was bored, really bored. Sighing, she got up, walking side to side of her laboratory, deep in thought. It has been nearly 2 months since she made Gohan's friends hunt the Dragon Balls, and she was kind of regretting it by now. It was taking longer than she expected, but again it was predictable since they couldn't fly and be as fast as her friends. She now stopped in the middle of the room, a frown showed how deep in thought she was, until a voice made her almost fall down in fright. Hey Bulma. She looked at her right side, her eyes widened as she saw Gohan. He was with a carefree smile, but his scars were the first thing she noticed. Even seeing it before on the television, it was still a shock. With a hand on her chest, she took a deep breath. Holy shit, Gohan, you almost killed me. He then chuckled. He should have asked Den to tell her he was coming. Sorry about that. He scratched the back of his head. I just wanted to ask you a favor. She raised one eyebrow at him. Her heartbeat was normal now. What is it? She now crossed her arms, waiting for him to continue. You see, now that the whole world knows, you know, this face, he gestured to his full of scars face. I had to find a way to hide it when I walk normally around. It took me a while, but I remembered something I was doing exactly for my alter ego. Now he was scratching his chin, an innocent smile appeared too. Well, it sounds like you already knows what to do, so why you need a favor from me? She titled her head trying to figure it out. I need you to go to my lab and make sure no one is there so I can get it. I'll need to adapt it too. Gohan now had a thoughtful face. He had to make sure the device show his true face while using his alter ego. Bulma nodded at him. Okay. Wait near the phone, I'll call you once I'm there. A smile crossed his face and Bulma walked away. Gohan now looked at her lab. Even to him it was oddly clean. Maybe she worked a lot more to distract her for the absence of Vegeta. I'm sorry, Bulma. His gaze went to the floor. That day was still alive in his memories, but all that vanished when the phone rang. Whoa, that was fast. Come, it's all clear. She made a pause. Well, not your lab, of course. You should clean this up since you're here. His sweat dropped. He forgot that she asked him to clean it months ago. I'm coming, he said cheerful, trying to avoid that topic. It wasn't that long after that he appeared at Bulma's side. Once again she jumped in fright, even expecting him this time. Since when you're able to use that technique? She now sat down on his couch. It was still the same since his friends came over. He looked at her with a grin and explained to Bulma how he trained since he went to live on the lookout. He talked while walking towards his desk, stopping in front of the wall behind it. He then put his right hand on it, making a digital scan appear. Son Gohan. The robot voice came out after his digital signature was recognized, making a square appear right beside it. Smiling, he opened it, by simply touch. Inside were several devices, including 2 spare transformations watch. There was also a scouter, 2 earrings and 2 secret projects from CC. Grabbing the earrings and one of the spare watch, he sat down on his desk. The safe closed automatically after a few seconds, merging once more with the wall. Bulma looked at Gohan with curiosity. She gave him liberty to do his work, and whatever he wanted to do, because she trusted him enough for that. The result was that there were things that even she didn't know the existence of. It was when he looked up to her. I need to pierce my ears. She blinked. Was he serious? I can do it for you, but there's no other way. He frowned in thought. There was negative impact in both cases, one being his earrings falling down and other is his ear be painful cut during a fight. Sighing, he chose the safe way, the one that didn't include his mother yelling at him by having pierced ears. I'll just modify to be a pressurized one. He then started to work on the earrings once more. They were small circles and orange, resembling the Dragon Balls. Finally he turned on his computer, which was full of dust. Bulma looked at Gohan with an angry glare. He should do cleaning more frequently. I know, he said, waving his hands at her. It took a few minutes, but with his computer finally on, he used it to upload some data into his earrings. While he had to wait, Gohan changed watches. Pressing the button, a new costume came out. His overcoat was now golden, the dragons and spandex suit all black. It had a visor too, which was tossed aside as fast as it materialized. Bulma said nothing about that. The computer made a characteristic sound, indicating that it was done with its task. Smiling, the half-breed grabbed his earrings and put on his ears. The genius woman was looking at him with interest by now, and her eyes widened in surprise when he pressed the buttons on his watch once more. His face was now without any scars. Wow, Gohan, it worked. She got closer to him, grabbing the side of his head and moving it in different angles. She was checking all his face to see his work. He chuckled at her. Bulma didn't change after all. You'll give me a wry neck. She immediately let go of his head. Oh, sorry. It's just that you do interesting things sometimes. Scratching the back of his head, he smiled shyly. Thanks, but in truth this is only a hologram. You can still feel the scars if you touch me. She nodded. The woman had indeed felt his scars while playing with his head. Still seems good to me. Send me the project and I'll make it commercially. I'll give you the money as always. She was smiling. This could be gold. Gohan muffled a chuckle. When Bulma decided something, nothing or anyone could do to take it off of her head. Well, thanks for the help, but now I have to go. I have to face my mom. He paled just remembering that she was already into the lookout. Wait. Gohan looked at Bulma and blinked. Take Trunks with you, please. With a sad sigh he nodded. There was no need to ask why after all. Both walked inside the house complex. A few scientists said hi to Gohan as they passed by them, and it made Bulma smile each time. This was proof that his device worked. Gohan kept smiling at her. She just loved to test her new products. After walking for a few minutes, the duo reached the living room, where Trunks was watching TV alone. His back was facing where they came from. The kid was watching the news, where Gohan's face could be seen with a huge "Wanted" in a red color right on it. Trunks heard the door open, but didn't turn to see whom came through it. Whoa, he's famous now. He spoke to anyone in particular? Well, I'd appreciate if they didn't see my face though. Gohan said, crossing his arms in front of him. Trunks turned around as fast as he recognized the voice, and was shocked to see the teenager's normal face. Gohan. He then looked back at the TV and to the teenager once again. He was comparing both faces. The scars are fake. Gohan smiled. I wish they were. Trunks looked at him with a titled head, making Gohan chuckle. See my earrings? After a positive nod he continued. They are making a hologram of my old face. If I took them out, or if they get too far away from my watch, my true face will show up again. Trunks made an interesting face and smiled. It always amazed him how Gohan and his mother could do stuff like that. So Trunks, Bulma caught his attention. I was talking to Gohan and he wanted to ask you something. The older Demi-Saiyan looked at her with a raised eyebrow, but soon he understood what she meant. Oh yeah, do you perhaps want to come to the lookout with me? There are a lot of aliens and half-aliens living with us now. Trunks's face lightened up. He was grounded home for so long now that he'd go out into the first chance he had. There was no need to say that the kid nodded energetically and run to get his belongings. Piccolo, Den and every single alien, and half alien, at the lookout were looking at Chi-Chi with a little bit of fear. The woman had her eyebrows connected in a deep frown, her arms crossed and her foot kept tapping the floor of the lookout. Oh, she was mad. How could Gohan run away from her as soon as she landed her jetcopter? Goten too had ran away from her once he noticed that his brother vanished. The little boy surely didn't want to be scalded instead. Fuming again, she let out a yell of anger. Her temper was getting worse at each minute. Then Gohan appeared with Trunks. At first he didn't put his eyes on her, trying to avoid the unavoidable fate of the frying pan on his head. What happened in minutes after his arrival? It took a while for his mother notice that his face was normal again. All she did was hit him in the head. But when she did notice, she got confused. What did you do to those scars? Or were they fake? With a sad smile, her son denied with his head. This is just something I've built for my golden fighter costume. I never thought that my true face would become a mask to my true identity though. He scratched the back of his head and had a silly son smile at his mother. Chi-Chi sighed at him. Let me see it. He cringed at that. Mom, I don't want you to see it. It's different from the TV. His eyes avoided hers as he remembered the video of him that was now seen in the whole world. Even he had troubles finding his face there, but the scars were way worse if you looked at it directly. Chi-Chi then put her hands on his cheeks, now being able to feel the damaged skin. Her eyes watered up as she felt his whole face with her fingers. It was when she put her son into a hug, her tiny arms holding him firmly against her body. I'm glad that you are still alive and well. You can still live with scars. At that his eyes watered too. He was glad he didn't show her his damaged skin after all. And she was right, he could still live with scars. Arasa was pouting while looking outside of the jetcopter, trying to see anything, but it turned impossible since the clouds were really dense. Sharpener was frowning at their master since he came back after getting the last Dragon Ball that they could find with the radar. How could the man know where to go if the radar couldn't find the magical sphere? Hey Kuririn, how do you know where to go? Vital asked with crossed arms. She was sitting behind him, but still could see his smile. Well, I've been there for more than I wanted in the past, so he even went there a few times to visit after the Cell Games. He did like the lookout after all, and has friends there. That didn't really answer the question, but Vital shrugged. It wasn't the first time Kuririn, and Gohan, avoided to answer her. Unfortunately for her own ego, she got used to it. Sharpener on the other side glared at the bald man. He was curious about what they would find now. Everything that happened since they meet Gohan and especially Kuririn just twisted their lives. Even Arasa was doing martial arts to some extent. And the girl hated it. Here we are, Kuririn said right before making the jet go higher, the engine's work being loud even on the inside of the jet. The teenagers felt the metal shake, heard it ranging and started to think the worst. They were going to die. But it was when the clouds vanished. They had gone past them, and the view made they hold back their breath. There, right above the clouds and in the blue sky, was a huge platform that, in theory, couldn't stand. They could see a sole pillar, too thin to support all the weight of the platform. Wow, was all that came out of their mouths. Once closer to it they could see people standing there, and soon enough they noticed they were aliens. It didn't take long to see known faces, like Gohan standing there and a wolfman from a certain village. Gohan on the other side frowned slightly looking at them. He had just told everyone to not call him Golden Fighter in front of them and they appeared. What timing, was all that came to his mind. He had, by now, accepted the fact that eventually they'd find out about his half-alien blood, but he just wanted to let his alter ego out of it. For now at least. As they landed, Gohan turned away, walking to the edge of the lookout, sitting there. Sure, he was better by letting them find him, but he wasn't ready to talk to them. He did ran away after all. Kuririn was the first to step out of the jet, and was greeted by a small blonde girl. She hugged him and he laughed. Getting her on his arms, the man hugged her. Daddy, I missed you. Maroon hugged his neck with her tiny arms, but she was strong to her age and for a human. A soft smile made its ways to his face. I missed you too. Where is your mommy? The girl then got her arms back, using them to push her body behind so she could look at her father's face. She's inside. These guys are scared of her. Now the girl had a frown and a pout. How could someone fear her mommy? She was kind. Kuririn's sweet dropped and chuckled. That was, after all, comprehensive. He glared at his students, that now were outside the jet, and then to Piccolo. Hey Piccolo, can you show them around? I'll go see 18. He saw the Namekian grimacing, but he nodded in the end. With a big smile he rushed inside, letting a thoughtful Vital behind. She remembered that name from the last time they went to Gohan's house. So it was a name, and Piccolo, so he is the so-called demon. He doesn't look that bad. She now was looking at the green alien, and would continue to stare at him if it wasn't for Gohan's voice. Come here, he said with one hand up, but he didn't look at them. He figured out that it'd be better if he just let his master out of it, or the Namek would be annoyed. Are you sure? He heard Piccolo into his mind, and just nodded, eyes still looking at the clouds. The teenagers' trio exchanged a look before walking to their friend, stopping right behind him. He was wearing a purple GI, that could uncover his chest scars, and the biggest one on his left arm, as he wasn't with a shirt under it. After a deep, really deep, breath he looked at them, no smile, no showing unwanted feelings. It's been a while. Getting up he walked to them, looking at each face for a while before continuing. How have you all been? Vital frowned slightly at him after noticing that he was being too formal, even though it seemed to go unnoticed by her two blonde friends. We are fine. I'm so glad you are healthy, cutie. Arasa said while giving Gohan a hug, that he didn't reciprocated, no reason in particular. He nodded, eyes falling on Vital who seemed to be in a deep thought. Are your ribs fine, brains? You took the same medicine that Bulma had, right? Gohan now looked at him with a raised eyebrow. So Bulma told them about the senzu beans too. What else do they know? I'm fine. I don't have any injuries anymore. Arasa put herself away from his body and looked at him before trying to put her hands on his face, but he acted fast and avoided the contact. The girl noticed what he did and hugged her own body sadly, while Gohan looked at Piccolo. Vital's frown got deeper at that. Why he avoided the contact? Why did you avoid Arasa? Gohan once more put his glare on Vital. Her eyes were still beautiful, he had to notice, but put that aside as fast as it came to his mind. Clearing his throat he avoided her eyes. No reason in particular. Then the teenager walked past them, clearly avoiding that topic. You all need the last Dragon Ball, right? Let's ask Den for it. The Kami, Sharpener yelled, making his black-haired friend stop and look at him with shock. They knew Den was the Kami of Earth. How do you? He started his speech, only to be interrupted by Vital. He spoke to Kuririn. Sharpener asked who he was and he answered. Any problem? She had now her arms crossed and an annoying face on. She just went back to her investigating self. So Gohan knew the Kami for all along and didn't told them. Well, it was just another secret he kept from them. Without answering, Gohan started to walk to Den followed by his friends and Piccolo. The Namekian noticed that it would be better if he went along, just to make sure nothing that his pupil didn't want to be revealed showed up. Of course he noticed suspicious glares at him, courtesy of Vital, and clearly heard her thoughts about him. How can Gohan team up with Demon Piccolo? He doesn't look that evil, but still, he couldn't help it and a muffled chuckle came out, making Gohan look at him with a little surprise. It was rare to see his master laugh. Vital looked at the alien with narrowed eyes. What was so funny after all? The group wasn't that far away from where Den was standing, always looking at the earth below, so they reached him pretty fast. Gohan stopped by his side. His right arm was now on his friend's shoulders. Dend. The teenagers saw the Kami flinch at their friend tone. The young Namek sweat dropped at that. What is it, Gohan? He turned his head to the side so he could see his friend, wishing right after that he didn't. Gohan was smiling at him, but Dend knew he was quite angry behind it. So they knew about you, and you didn't tell me. His smile grew larger, and Dend cleared his throat. Oh, I forgot to tell you that. Sorry, my bad. He smiled and Gohan chuckled. He just couldn't be angry at Dend anymore. In the end, the group of fighters and teenagers agreed to use the Dragon Balls in the next day. Dend said it was best for Gohan's friends to have a good night of sleep. He knew they were tired after traveling so much after all. As he expected, his Demi-Saiyan friend didn't get so happy with that. But he didn't complain. All he did was a scowl to show his feelings to his Kami friend. Mr. Popo made food to all visitors, and was happy all the time. Chi-Chi hugged each teenager as fast as she saw them, Goten doing the same but ran away fast enough to play with Trunks, who barely nodded to the group. She often looked at her oldest son, trying to find out how he was feeling with all this. It didn't work. It was all the same of 7 years ago, where he seemed a different person and she couldn't read him. She hated that, but he didn't. When the woman asked to talk to him, he just shrugged. It's better that you can't read me again, was all he said to her, and she had to give up. He was stubborn once in this state, just like his father. Goku wouldn't tell his plans if he believed it were going to sadden her, and she hated that. It was just like when he made Gohan fight against Cell. What was the point in not telling if she'd be sad after seeing it? Giving up on reading her son, she just went to sleep at Aiden's room, together with Kuririn, Goten and Trunks, after a lot of complaint from the kids, of course. Vital and the two blondes were settled into a room near Zara and her family, right at the side of Gohan's bedroom. Dend was starting to consider asking Bulma for some capsule houses as the temple was starting to get crowded and without room for everyone. He decided that he'd not sleep that night. The Kami had sensed that something could go wrong if he did so. Meanwhile, the 3 human teenagers entered Gohan's room after asking him to show it to them. The Demi-Saiyan was asking Kami, that was outside, to get them sleepy so he could rest too, what obviously didn't happen. Vital wanted to talk, as well as Sharpener and Arasa, but he wasn't really into it. So, Vital started after sitting on his bed. It was enough for 2 people she noticed. You came here right after leaving the hospital. Sharpener and Arasa both sat at her side, letting Gohan sat on the small armchair in front of it. Yes, he simply said, the small seat making his hidden tail shake bothered by the thigh space. That's why he never used that armchair. The last time he fit there was when he was 11 years old. He even wondered why it was still there. Did someone bring you here? Because you still had your ribs broken, right? Arasa asked with a soft tone. With a sigh, Gohan moved into the tight space, trying to be more comfortable. It didn't work and his tail was still shaking. Saiyans' tails were a weak spot after all. Well, kinda. It was still a sensitive member. No, I came here by myself. How was your trip with Kuririn? He asked while getting up from the armchair. His tail was hurting there and he didn't want another hurt spot on his body. It stopped shaking immediately and he felt better. Oh, it was incredible. He taught us about so many things. Arasa answered cheerfully, and her friends smiled, even Gohan. He was glad that at least they had fun, not getting hurt as he did. You may know how to fly, right? Sharpener asked with a raised eyebrow, and that got Gohan a bit by surprise. He didn't expect Kuririn to show them that he could fly. Kuririn is teaching us into martial arts. We now know some interesting things. The blonde now smiled triumphant at his surprised friend. I see. Gohan paused. Indeed, I know how to fly, so I guess you guys can too. He now rested his back at the wall, still looking at the 3 on his bed. Since they found out that by their own, he didn't mind to confirm it. Well, not really, Vital said with a pout that made Gohan look at her with curiosity. Sharpener can float a little while me, well, I'm having difficulties in that matter. She looked down ashamed of herself. I didn't even find my key yet. You're better than me, Arasa said, patting her friend's back, in a supportive aid. The three then started to talk about their training, telling their black-haired friend about all the trouble they went through to gather the Dragon Balls. Gohan stood there looking at his friends, thinking of how they were important to him and how much he wanted their support. Even without telling them about his heritage. It was ironic. He wanted them to trust him, but he wasn't telling them half of the truth about himself. Gohan couldn't help the soft chuckle that came to his lips, and it turned out into a hard laugh. He didn't know why he was laughing at all. Was it nervousness? Then it all turned into a sad sob. Maybe all the pressure he had on his shoulders since he was a child finally got to him. The happiness of the peaceful lives of his friends was the complete opposite of his own. The teenagers were stunned as they didn't understand what was happening to their friend. Confused glares were exchanged between them while the sob intensified, but before they could do something about it, the door opened abruptly. Gohan looked at it and saw Piccolo with a worried glare, making his cry to stop. The Namekian was listening to their talk, due to his advanced hearing, and couldn't help but remember those old times at the forest with a crying 4-year-old boy. He approached his pupil, a hand on his shoulder showing concern. Are you okay? He asked, looking at Gohan's eyes, that were still wet but without tears now. Gulping, he nodded. I'm fine. Sorry for worrying you. Piccolo sighed. He knew that Gohan was lying. Don't lie to me. You know that I know you better than anyone. Gohan let out a muffled chuckle, while the trio that was witnessing the scene understood nothing. I'm sorry for putting the weight to save Earth in your shoulders again. You know that, right? A smile crossed the teenager's face after hearing his master's voice inside his head. Piccolo always knew what he was feeling. It was just like he said. He knew him better than anyone. I know. Thank you, he assured his master with a characteristic sun smile, making Piccolo smile too. Are you really fine? Vital asked, even being confused and lost in their short talk. The girl never saw Gohan cry before and she sure hated it. His smile turned soft as he looked at her worried eyes, making her heart skip a beat. A nod made Vital's worries lighter, but they were still there. The talk ended a few minutes after Piccolo made sure that his pupil was really fine and left the room. The trio noticed that Gohan was really tired and decided to keep their talk for the next day. They knew they'd stay there for an unknown time after all. As soon as they left, Gohan let out a deep sigh and fell on his bed, his face hitting the soft mattress. He stood like that for long minutes, and finally turned so that his face could now see the ceiling. He also gave his tail freedom, and it paid him back by waving at its own will. It amused him to tell the truth. Sometimes it was like the member had a self-consciousness. I don't recall you being like this when I was a child, he said, looking at the waving tail, which kept its movement. As he stood there for a long time, he just kept looking at the ceiling, thinking. He should tell his friends the truth about him, shouldn't he? But again, how would they react? By their talk earlier, they now seemed to not think that all aliens are bad, and they didn't even feel fear with all their guests. But it was different when it was someone closer. No. He took a deep breath. He should just tell them to take one of the responsibilities out of his shoulders. Plus, it would make him a lot happier. Then he heard 2 soft knocks on the door that broke his trail of thinking. Doing a fast key sensing, he was surprised to find out it was Vital, and soon enough he heard 2 more knocks, this time a bit louder. As Gohan was wondering what she wanted, it didn't come to his mind to answer her, at least until he heard the low voice of the girl. I guess he's sleeping already. At that, he couldn't hold back the anxiousness on his voice. I'm coming. Wait. It also came out louder than he expected. Cursing under his breath, he hid his tail again and rushed to the door. Taking deep breaths to calm down, he opened the door slowly. Vital had her hair free from the ponytails, but was still using the usual white shirt and black pants, but instead of her boots she was using flip-flops. They stood there staring at each other for longer than expected, but Gohan cleaned his throat before speaking. Is something wrong? His eyes went to the floor, just to meet her blue orbs again when she spoke. No, she made a grimace and looked away, while trying to put her thoughts in place. She just went there due to Arasa's stubbornness, as the blonde just kept annoying her. Once she said that she was worried about Gohan. Why wouldn't she? When they finally meet again, he was acting as cold and distant than the first time they meet at school, not to mention how he avoided Arasa's touch and his cry. The soft Gohan cried for Kami's sake. Vital. He called her out, making their eyes meet once again. The girl took a breath to break the stare. Are you really doing fine? That took him by surprise, but again, Vital was almost unpredictable. It's just that, you're acting weird and distant. Did something happen? Her eyes showed concern and it made his heart ache a bit. She noticed, a sudden cold wind made its way in both, making the girl shiver and hugs her own body to keep her warm. Gohan put one hand on her shoulder, its warmth sent chills on her whole body and Vital tried her best to not show it. Come inside, it's warmer. He didn't have any dirty thoughts, he was just worried that she would get sick. Holding back a blush, she nodded and followed him inside. There she was again, but this time alone with him. He led her to the armchair. After she sat down, he got his blanket and put it around her body as if she was a kid that didn't know how to do so. His scent made its ways to her nose, and she couldn't resist but enjoy it. He smiled and crouched in front of her, his arms crossed on top of her legs. Better. He was grinning. This stupid grin of his, it's so cute. She nodded. Will you answer me? It's fine if you don't want to though. Vital put her hands on his arms, one coincidentally on his fingers that were holding his arms. Gohan's heart immediately reacted to her touch, but he did his best not to show it. He looked down at her hands, they were so small compared to his, yet it could make his heart race in a flash. He could tell her something's indeed, she wasn't doing an inquiry, he could tell she was worried. Well, his eyes meet hers again. It's just that, he stopped again, her eyes were really distracting him. Let's say it's been a while since I felt normal and at peace. He decided in the end. It wasn't a lie though. Vital studied his features, and moved one hand up, she was aiming for his face. It wasn't a reaction as fast as when Arasa did it, but he avoided the touch on the last minute. He then looked away. He really wasn't prepared for them, specifically her, to find out about his face. Vital got her hands back, this time putting it inside the blanket. So it's okay to touch his body but not his face, what's wrong with him? I see, was all she said. He looked up to her. I'm glad you aren't like that because of us. She let out a soft smile and he thanked Kami for their oblivious knowledge of his outburst a few days ago. Gohan, sorry to interrupt, but I need your help again. Den's voice came to his mind, making he sigh. Den is calling me, can you wait until I come back? He said, getting up, looking at her. Vital nodded once and he smiled before going out. Den had to hold back a smirk as he saw Gohan. Well, the young Kami may have something to do with a convenient cold wind a few minutes ago. He didn't want to mingle with his friend's love life, but he knew Gohan was being too hard-minded by staying away from the person he liked. But he'd not tell what he did though, he didn't need another Saiyan outburst. What's up, Den? Gohan said once at his side. A few demi-aliens are being chased, can you go to them? When his friend nodded and pressed the button on his watch, showing his true face once more in his new suit, he continued. Just take care, okay? Gohan nodded, making sure to tell his friend he'd be fine. It wasn't too long after that Gohan appeared with a dozen scared people with him, also he was bleeding at the right side of his belly. Dend ran to heal him but he didn't let. It's okay Dend. It's not serious at all. I can take care of this myself so, don't worry. Of course the Namekian was against it but Gohan just walked back to his room. Changing back to his GI he walked inside, just to find a sleeping Vital at the armchair. He had completely forgotten about her and felt a little bit guilty, even the keepers being distracting enough. The Demi-Saiyan walked over to the sleeping girl and softly pulled her out of the armchair, princess style. He groaned as his wound made itself present by aching, but he had got worse ones in the past so it didn't really bothered. Walking to the left side of the bed he slowly put Vital down, taking care to not wake her up. He stared at her for several minutes, and finally used his fingers to put a lock of hair away from her face, before going to take care of his new wound on the bathroom. He closed the door, took off the upper part of his GI and looked at the bloodied part. Opening one of the drawers under the sink he got a clean towel. After wetting it he started to clean the damaged area. Now free from all the blood he could see it really wasn't a deep wound so he didn't do much. After putting some medicine he wrapped his belly with a medical band. Putting the upper part of his clothes again Gohan walked out. As soon as he got to the bed he lied down without thinking twice, even with Vital there. Turning to his left side he closed his eyes after looking a little bit more at the girl in front of him. He wished that at least she could have a nice night of sleep. It was several minutes after that Vital opened her eyes. Her blue orbs were fixed on his sleeping face. She never had the chance to look at it before, her mind remembering the exactly moment she woke up, when he carried her to the bed. Her heart skipped a beat as the touch of his fingers gently put her hair away from her face while she was faking her sleep, and she could only react after hearing the bathroom's door close. A low groan from Gohan made she came back to the present, her eyes traveling to the hand he had on his right side where she saw blood. Blood. Her eyes widened as the concern grew, and the last thing he said to her came back. Dend is calling me. Vital had to hold back her anger as the alien was Kami, but she was blaming him already. But, as she learned something while traveling, she was going to hear what happened before making a decision. Dad, a painful voice came from Gohan, making Vital forget her anger for a little bit. Don't. It's my fault. Her eyes became soft at that. All her angry for his new injury crashed as the girl remembered when Gohan told her about his scars at the fire pit. His free hand was now gripping the white bed sheet and she aimed for that one. Her tiny hand was now on top of his. It's okay. Everything is fine now. For her surprise he relaxed, just before he brought her close to him with a brute force she had no knowledge of. In a flash he was hugging her body. She could feel his breath near her face as her body fitted perfectly on his. By now she was deaf, courtesy of her own loud heartbeat that echoed inside her ears. He mumbled something but she couldn't understand. Vital didn't hate their position, she was happy for the moment after all, so she decided to enjoy it and sleep. Gohan unconsciously put both into a better comfortable hug, and had no more nightmares that night. Gohan slowly stretched his body, his eyes still closed, and hugged someone closer. That made him frown. After all he didn't remember sleeping with Goten. Maybe the kid sneaked into his room again. With a deep breath he felt an essence different from his brother, making the boy open his eyes. He wished he didn't. Wide eyes looked at a sleeping Vital on his arms, a peaceful semblance on her face as if she had one of the best nights in her life. His mind by now was having an internal fight. One side said that he should wake her up and just tell her his feelings, while the other said to push her away as fast as possible. He couldn't decide at all. Gohan was frozen. Then Vital woke up. As fast as she opened her eyes he closed his. There was no way the Demi-Saiyan was going to let her know that he was awake. Vital made herself more comfortable on his arms, and he made his best to not let she notice that he was, despite the despair of being found out, enjoying her presence. A soft giggle came from her mouth. She was happy that finally she had some cute moment with Gohan, even he being asleep. She didn't care at all. After a while her hands found his wrist that had his watch, and she turned around to see what time was it. Her eyes widened once she read 8 a.m. We sleep all night. Damn it, Arasa will annoy me to no end. Slowly, and with care to not wake him up, she got free from his comfortable arms, missing the warmth of the half-alien already. She smiled softly at him before getting out of the room. Gohan sat up right after the door closed. His tail got free for its own will and started to move around frantically, as if responding the boy's feelings. What the hell did I do yesterday? Why did I even sleep on the bed? He covered his fake face with his hands, trying to calm down. He couldn't let Vital know that he woke up before her and faked his sleep. She was going to be so mad at him. Vital didn't have to walk much to find Arasa and Sharpener sitting on the floor of the lookout. Of course, it also took mere seconds for the first blonde smirk at the brunette, who started to argue with her. Oh come on V. You two slept together. Arasa said, but Sharpener did the groan of protest. He didn't want to hear that. Arasa. It's not like that. Vital crossed her arms in front of her. I went there to talk, but Cammy called him for some reason. I don't know how he did that though, she said with a pout, shaking her head to get back to main topic. He asked for me to wait him so I did it. But I kinda slept. Reet. Arasa said before something caught her attention. Well, we can always ask Gohan to be sure. Another smirk crossed her face as the glare she got from Vital. A little away from them Gohan walked with a bit of nervousness. He was afraid of Vital knowing he was awake and he knew for sure how Arasa would tease him. Or them. His heart froze as he saw his friends, Vital still with her hair loose, but he couldn't go to them as Den stepped in front of his way, making him stop. Let me heal you. Gohan chuckled at his friend that glared at him. Don't laugh. Everyone was looking at the duo now. Come on Den, I already told you that I'm fine. Show me. The angry frown he was receiving made the half-breed sigh. As I said, it wasn't deep. It's healed already. Den sighed heavily. He knew how stubborn Gohan was after deciding something, so he gave up. Fine. But if your mom comes angry at me because you have a new injury, I'll let her know it's your fault. That made the boy shiver. Chi-Chi was basically the only human he feared after all. Looking at his friends he smiled, even them being concerned as they noticed the blood in his clothes making them forget about the sleeping together subject. It wasn't long after that Piccolo fixed it for him, by conjuring a new up GI part. Mr. Popo brought the Dragon Balls, all of them, to Dend, who ordered that only Gohan, Vital, Arasa, Sharpener, Piccolo, Kuririn and 18 to be closer. All the aliens had to go inside. Kuririn walked to them followed by his wife that was clearly mad by now, a rare thing to be noticed. I'm going back to our house, she said once they stopped in front of the group. If I'm going to be treated like this, I prefer to stay on the middle of nowhere. Kuririn's sweat dropped. Calm down, I already told you that if you act like that it'll be worse. He noticed that even his students were looking at her with a little bit of uncertainty. She looked just like the keepers after all, aside from her eyes and clothes. Excuse me, but Sharpener decided to talk for his friends. Why you're so alike the keepers? All eyes went to 18, who made an angry face. They look like me. I'm much older. Besides, I am a living person. She crossed her arms and looked away. That only led the teenagers to more questions, which surprisingly were answered by Gohan. Look guys, he said with one hand scratching the back of his head. 7 years ago a mad scientist created 2 androids to destroy one specific alien. That got them by surprise, and even 18 was looking at him with curiosity. He wasn't going to say that she was supposed to kill his father. Well, at the same time Cell appeared and blew up his plan. 18 and her brother, 17, changed after that. It took a few seconds, but Gohan received a friendly slap in his back, Piccolo's courtesy. Look who grew up and is now sharing info. Piccolo said with a smirk, and his pupil let out a disbelief chuckle. He wasn't that closed, was he? So, we can say you're a beta project for the Keepers? Vital asked, still a little bit confused, but not the same as before. Besides, this mad scientist was surely the same one Kuririn told them about, the one who also created Cell. The only missing part is the identity of the alien they should kill, and why. Oh, and that thing about the future, they were still a bit confused at that. No, I don't recall him having a project like that before we killed him. She then turned to her husband, ignoring the looks she got from the teenagers at the word, killed. You didn't find anything else either at the lab, right? He denied with his head and looked at Gohan. Do you? That got the boy in surprise, but he shook his head denying it too. He didn't lie. His memory from that time was really blurred for obvious reasons. The talk died not too long after that. Kuririn insisted that they use the Dragon Balls as soon as possible because of Bulma. The woman was surely having a furry attack by now. Vital, Sharpener and Arasa were impressed at the sight of the huge dragon that was summoned by the simple spoken phrase. They were even more impressed that the group was acting like this situation was something normal, or a regular basics. Say your wishes. The deep voice of the dragon made they wide their eyes in surprise. They weren't expecting that it could talk. In the stories Vital's mother used to tell them, you just did the wish to the balls, a dragon didn't exist in those. It was like, reunite the magic spheres and it'd turn on, you wish whatever you want and it's done. But no, there was a dragon, enormous just to the record, and he could talk. Aliens were the less unbelievable thing to them right now. We want you to bring Vegeta back to life. Kuririn said, taking the lead. The teenagers looked ahead, noticing that Kuririn walked forward and was now closer to the dragon. They were so impressed by the first sight of the magical creature that they didn't even see their master walking to it. I can't. He is still alive. That got even Gohan by surprise. If he was alive, then Wiki really had something to hide the key of the captured aliens. And that were bad news. Huh, then can you bring him here? The bald monk asked while scratching his head, unsure of what to think of that new information they got. Still, getting Vegeta back was priority. I have to warn you that he needs medical care. Do you still want me to bring him? Gohan frowned, worried. That couldn't be good. Whatever Wiki was doing to Vegeta, or the aliens, it was clearly nothing near good. Yes. Kuririn then looked at Dend, who nodded in understanding. There was no need to say out loud the words. He was going to cure Vegeta as soon as he appeared. Very well. The dragon's eyes shined red for a brief instant, and a loud sound could be heard near the golden spheres. Soon enough they saw a body. Dend ran to Vegeta as soon as he felt his weak ki, healing him so he could be out of danger. He got worried even more as he noticed blood on the prince's clothes and skin. Gohan also went to the prince with considerable speed. Their body covered Vegeta so the teenagers couldn't see him, the curiosity getting the best of them. The young Kami did his best, and it didn't take too long until the prince was out of danger, but he was far from being all healed. Whipping the sweat out of his forehead, Dend looked at Gohan, worried. Can you take him to your room? He needs to rest. With a smile, Gohan answered, easing the feelings of his friend. Dend did get better at healing, but he still wasn't as good as a Senzu Bean, but Vegeta wasn't near death for them to have the need to complete the healing. He'd wake up soon. Should I carry him, princess style? He knew the timing wasn't one of the best, but he just couldn't hold it. Also, he wished to make his friend feel good. He had to hold back a laugh as he saw Dend's face lightening up, a smile growing, showing that even at this moment puns were welcome. Oh, I got that one. Dend laughed and got up, helping Gohan to put Vegeta on his back. And now the teenager trio could see perfectly the man. They couldn't believe he was the same alien that broke their friend's ribs a few months ago. The teenagers looked shocked as Gohan walked away, going to his room with the very same alien that attacked CC as if he wasn't guilty of anything. But again, Bulma was the one who asked for him, they just weren't expecting, well, him. More questions formed into their heads, ones of, who the hell is this man? Why did Bulma ask for him if he was the culprit? Just what the hell is happening? But Kuririn made those forgotten for a moment with a single question. So, what do you three want to wish? He had a smile glued on his face, but the teenagers frowned at each other. The Z fighters had talked about it the day before, as soon as everyone went to sleep. They wondered if they should use all the wishes of the Dragon Balls, because as things were right now there was a chance of needing them. In the end, the group decided it wouldn't be fair to the trio that worked so hard to gather the magic items, and they also could rely on Namek's Dragon Balls, if there was a really need for new wishes. The trio really didn't know what to wish for, so they stood there looking blankly at their master. Their journey started so that they could find Gohan, what they already accomplished. Deciding to find something they'd wish for, they took a few minutes to discuss what they would wish for. And so, they finally had an answer. So, Vital started. Is it possible to? She whispered in Kuririn's ear what they wanted to wish. Silence was her answer. Piccolo looked away with a scowl, while Kuririn scratched his head. That was a delicate subject after all. Piccolo and Dende got slightly worried, but there was no need to say that they were wondering if that would be a wise thing to do at the present. Kuririn then looked at Piccolo, knowing that he could hear his thoughts, and that surely enough he heard what Vital asked. It wouldn't be a problem, right? The Namekian looked at him, brows connected in wondering. I just hope that it doesn't turn into a bad thing. As it sounded like a consent, Kuririn smiled, turning then to his disciples. Yeah, go ahead, just ask Shenlong. He said, pointing to the huge dragon that had a mad scowl by now. He just wanted to go back to his good and beautiful sleep. Just for how long those humans would wait to make their wish. Hurry up. I want to sleep. His deep voice hurried the group, but the Z fighters just laughed at his behavior. He didn't change after all. Vital walked forward with a little speed though. From this close the dragon seemed bigger and impressive, intimidating even. But it didn't made her go back. No, she was going to make her wish. Her eyes traveled around his body, starting on his paws and claws, which if he wanted to attack someone would be very effective, she noted, and then to all his emerald scales, his fangs and all other details that couldn't be seen where she was before. He looked a little upset though, and the girl took that as a bad humor for being suddenly awake from a who knows how long nap he was having. Tell me your wish. His voice still had the upset tone. Huh, I want. Vital said her wish in a murmur, always looking up to see the dragon's reaction. His eyes shined red once more for a fast moment before he spoke again, his voice showing a better mood than before. Your wish is done. Now I shall leave. And just like that the huge dragon vanished in a bright light, the Dragon Balls raised into the air and started to go into different ways until none was left. Gohan sat on his bed so he could put Vegeta there easily, what he did with care. The Saiyan was still recovering after all. He sighed as he got up after putting the prince on the soft mattress. Vegeta was still with his training GI, but it was torn in various places and there was dry blood, even some fresh spots, all over the fabric. It was like something was put inside his body before they wished him back, and that worried Gohan. What they'd do if Wiki was experiencing on aliens. Memories of that day came to Gohan as he keeps looking at the, now no existent, injuries. Once again he blamed himself for the prince getting caught, but shook his head to make those thoughts go away. He knew he could do nothing about it now. All he was going to do was tell Bulma that he was back and resting at the lookout. That was the only thing he could do at the present. After looking at the prince once more, the teenager got up and walked outside the room. Once outside he noticed that all aliens were now back there and the Z group was talking happily with his friends. Gohan walked slowly, due to being stopped to talk with some aliens and half-aliens, some asking how was their friend that was rescued. It seemed that they somehow knows what just happened, but he shrugged as it wasn't really a secret, they could have asked Dend or someone for that info. After some time, he finally got back to his friends. I see you're popular, Vital said with a smile, and he chuckled lightly. She had no idea just how popular. Yeah, maybe it's because I was here before they came. He joked, shrugging at his own words. They weren't exactly a lie, but that wasn't the reason he was popular around the lookout. Looking around, he spoke again. So, did you guys had a chance to wish something? He blinked as his three human friends smiled and nodded. So, what was it? That's, my dear friend, is a surprise for you, Sharpener said, smirking, making Gohan smile at their behavior. Somehow, he felt it was good to be around them again. Even he's still hiding some truth about himself. Since we are going back down to Earth to train soon, we want you to go with us so we can show you our wish afterwards, Arasa said, crossing her hands on her back and smiling happily at him. Now he had an internal conflict. If he went down to Earth, he surely would have problems with the keepers, but if he didn't, his friends would think he was running away, again. He wondered about the pros and cons, his brain thinking fast. He still had his watch to keep his identity a secret. Besides, if they had a chance to run into some keeper, they just had to get away from it. Looking at Piccolo, he got a nod in approval, so he decided to go. After all, if Piccolo agreed with that, there was no reason to not go. Sure, why not? He let the sun smile came out and their friends commemorated, jumping and cheering. The last time they spent time together was ages ago, in their memories. In the middle of their cheering, Gohan felt a hand on his shoulder, and turning around he found Zara. Oh Zara, what's up? He said, smiling, but she stood with an expressionless face. Take care with the night sky. He looked at her with a serious face now. She knew the risk he was going to have once away from the lookout, but why with the night sky? That didn't really make sense to him, but nonetheless, she still had some strange ability. I will, don't worry. With a smile, she went back to her family. It wasn't long after that Chi-Chi came running with the frying pan in one hand, her face red in anger. For some reason Gohan hid himself behind Piccolo, who just sweat dropped. The most powerful being in the universe was hiding from his mother. This is ridiculous, he thought, until the woman turned to the group and he found himself gulping. Where are those two little demons? They dared to try and do a prank on me. And Goten need to study. By now all aliens made their ways away from the human. She was as scary as a keeper. That was common knowledge on the lookout. Trunks, you idiot. The group, aside from the teenagers, thought the same thing. Den started to laugh, owning glares of, are you crazy? But he didn't care. Even in situations where the Earth was in crisis, the woman always was concerned about her son's studies. Hey Dend, she yelled at him, pointing with her frying pan, making his laugh stop immediately. Tell me where they are. I know you can find them. The young Kami smiled weakly. Why did he laugh? Doing a fast key check, he found both kids near the door for the time chamber. They are near the time chamber. I just hope they don't. Chi-Chi turned her head so fast that it made a loud crack, making the scene seems like it was a terror movie, and run to them. Enter it. He sighed as they heard the woman yell and using the frying pan on the kids. Your mom really is something else. How did you and Goten survive her for so long? Den said, looking at a Gohan that only had his head appearing by Piccolo's shoulder now. Huh, I have no idea. The group then laughed. Gohan was lying down on the grass, looking at the afternoon sky. It has been so long since he just got lazy around that it even seemed wrong. The village they went to was already clean of aliens, but their citizens weren't happy about that, not to mention that it seemed to happen only a few hours ago. Well, he couldn't help everyone, but he still got mad at himself for not being able to do anything. With a deep breath he just hopped that by now Bulma was already by Vegeta's side with Trunks on the lookout. He couldn't say he wasn't worried of why the prince didn't wake up after Den's healing. He would visit him as soon as they got back, but for now he just wanted to relax. He deserved that, more than anyone at the moment. Frustrating noises made him look to his friends and he had to hold back a chuckle at the sight. Arasa was frustrated as she still couldn't bring her ki out, while Sharpener was floating a few meters and Vital had a scowl on her face. She didn't even lift her foots. Her mood didn't get better with Sharpener teasing her from the sky either, and she seemed nearly to get a nerve attack. Kuririn approached Gohan, his arms crossed while he watched his pupils with a smile. So, what do you think about my little pupils? He grinned at the Demi-Saiyan who laughed. It seems they lack in discipline. At the grimace Kuririn made the boy laughed even more. I'm kidding. No, you're kinda right. He said while sitting by Gohan's side on the grass. The only one with a little bit more of discipline is Vital, but even her is thinking too much. That's why she can't fly. He let out a sigh. He just had to find the right way to help her use her ki properly to the technique. Can I try and help her? Gohan said while putting his eyes on the girl, who still had a scowl on her face. Kuririn smiled devilishly to him. Oh, the power of love is always welcome. He laughed to his heart's content as Gohan couldn't hold back his blush. He was got by surprise, and he'd not help her with the power of love. Not that kind of love. It's not like that, he said, getting up and walking to Vital, letting a laughing Kuririn behind. Vital noticed the boy chatting with her master, and soon enough he got up from his spot. He walked slowly, coming her way, and she frowned confused, why he was going there. Sure, she knew he can fly, but he wasn't going to help her, or would he? Gohan stopped in front of her a few steps after, arms crossed and a silly smile on his face. Looking at his muscles suddenly made her remember how he hugged her body against his and she couldn't help but blush. She looked away, trying to put her thoughts in place. I see you need a little help, so I asked Kuririn to help you. Can I? So, in the end, he was there to help her. Inside, she loved that idea. Hush, sure, she said, trying to hold back her feelings. His smile grew at her positive answer, and again she looked away with a little bit of a blush on her cheeks. Great. Come with me. He then gestured to her to follow him, what she did as soon as he gave her his back. Gohan led the way through some nearby trees. It was a more private place, where they could enjoy the silence around. The place they were previously wasn't too noisy, but with Arasa making frustrated noises and Sharpener challenging Vital, it sure was loud enough for him to teach her there. The Demi-Saiyan took a deep breath. He always loved the air into the forests, the peace that exists in there, even with the birds singing, animals making their own sounds. Once he found a good spot for their training, he stopped, and so did his companion. Okay, first of all, show me your ki, he said, turning to her with a big smile. How he enjoyed the air around him, that even made his mood a little better. The girl blinked at his sudden change and question, but showed him anyway. With her hands in front of her she slowly put her ki out, a faint yellow energy illuminated her fingers and Gohan smiled. As I expected from you. She blushed. What did he mean by that? Thanks, I guess, she said shyly, and he grinned. Okay. She looked at him. Kuririn told you to clean your mind, but let's try something different. She nodded at him. She was curious about what he'd do of different. Think about something you really like, or even love. It can be an object, a pet, anything. Immediately an image of the very person in front of her came to her thoughts. Vital pouted uncomfortable and looked down, again. Was that becoming a habit? Is it really going to help? Isn't there another way? She heard him chuckle and looked up. Trust me, you don't want to do the other method. Now, close your eyes. With a sigh she did it. Now think about it. She could see him perfectly on her mind, his voice helping a lot. Now, Think of the times it made you feel excited or utterly happy. What came now was the very first sincere smile the boy gave them. It was into his second week at school. Her heart started to beat in a soft rhythm and she could feel a calm wind dancing around her. Now think when it made you feel like you were floating. That last part was easy. She could feel it whenever she was with him, even at this very moment. The wind now got stronger and the silence around her grew, making her wonder why he was so quiet. She frowned and as if Gohan was noticed what she was thinking, he spoke. Open your eyes. And she did it slowly. She was at least 1 meter out of the ground, and in front of her stood a smiling Gohan who was also flying. What? A yell came out of her mouth as she realized she managed to float by simply thinking of Gohan. How crazy was that? Now, all you have to do to fly is remember this feeling. With time you'll do it even without thinking about it. She smiled widely at him, eyes shining as she realized a dream she always had, that made him smile softly at the girl. After that, Gohan asked her if she wanted to train a little more, to be sure to remember the feeling, and after a positive answer they kept going. They lost count of how long they stood there, simply training, not only flying but also how to properly use ki blasts. It wasn't that Kuririn didn't say how to do it to his pupils, but Gohan thought that if he could help her fly, he could give her some hints about that part too. But it didn't take long to the Demi-Saiyan notice her ki fluctuate, demonstrating that her reserves were starting to run low. So, in his best judgment, he said they should stop for the day. Vital nodded and did as she was told. So, she said sitting on the grass, whipping the sweat out of her forehead that came due her intense training and lowing energy. Is this how you learned how to fly? Gohan looked at her for a few seconds before denying with his head. No, I found out this method years later. My master was teaching me the different ways to learn it and when he told me this one I got really angry at him. With her eyes she asked why, and after a sigh, and hands going through his hair, he continued. When I learned how to properly use my ki, we were kinda in a hurry so he used the drastic method, threw me off of a cliff. Her eyes widened but he laughed at that, even it being a little traumatic at the time, he was sure that if Piccolo didn't do that he'd never learn it in time to fight. Always a motive to him to get stronger in a short time. That's how his life has been since his uncle showed up. Your master sounds so cruel. Who is he? She asked, getting up in shock. How could someone throw another from a cliff, just to learn how to fly? You've already met him, he said with a blank stare, as if she was shocked by nothing. Now Vital blinked. Kuririn. A smile crossed his face as he denied, though he did learn some fighting from Kuririn over the years. Piccolo. Now her mouth wide opened in shock, he was Demon Piccolo for Kami's sake. Gohan chuckled. Her reactions were just so cute. They stood there until the sun started to set. The beautiful colors into the skies made Vital look at Gohan with the corner of her eyes. It was like he fitted into the picture, and it was beautiful. She didn't have much time to appreciate it though, as not long after they started to walk back to the others, he leading the way and she right behind him. His back was, somehow, making her feel unexpectedly anxious. She stopped her feet before they could be back to Kuririn, and looked at the place they were for so long. The sun was now almost set and the dim light was enough to illuminate the two figures, now stopped, in the middle of the trees. Vital. Gohan asked, noticing that she was standing there for more than he had anticipated. His voice made the girl look at him, and for some reason her heart was beating in a calm rhythm. Is something wrong? He asked her concerned. She started looking right into his eyes. Yes, there was something wrong, and it was her feelings. To her, right now and after all that happened, it was wrong to keep them to herself. So, she took a decision. I want to tell you something. Now her heart started to beat faster. Her resolve was making their side effect. Her ki floated up and down, making it easier to Gohan to notice what she wanted to say. She wouldn't. He gulped. What is it? Even though he wouldn't let it out, he was freaking inside. If she was going to do what he believed, he'd have to deal with things he promised himself to be away of. And that wasn't an option at the moment. She started, but the right words just didn't came out, and she looked down, trying to order her thoughts. With a deep breath she calmed herself, and looked up confident, and even now facing his back, what surprised her, she went ahead. Lee. His eyes widened, his hands clenched. Stop. He yelled, making she stop. When she started to talk, he had to turn his back on her so she couldn't see his feelings, he had to hide them. Gohan was desperate. He couldn't believe that Vital, the person he likes, feels like that towards him. The person who promised to be away from his own feelings. The person she liked. The one that was running away from this amazing girl. Who still had so much secrets towards his friends. Vital was in shock while he was having his own self-debate. Were she just rejected before even being able to confess? Why he asked her to stop, and better, why did her? She couldn't believe in it, and her resolve came up once more. She was going to at least say it. That wasn't fair. Gohan. I said stop. She stared at his back with a blank stare, mouth wide open at the way he was behaving. Was he really going to be like this? Why? You don't even know what is it that I want to say. She felt her eyes watering but hold back her tears. She wasn't going to cry in front of him. Not now, or ever. She just wanted to yell her feelings, and he wasn't even letting her do so. I don't want to mess up what we have. Gohan yelled back at her, but didn't turn to face her. He wouldn't be able to maintain a blank face at the moment, not to mention he sure didn't want to see the face she was doing. Her key was enough for him to know how bad things were right now, and he surely did not want to go back into his word and resolve. Vital, on the other hand, stared at his back without feelings now. She was broke. Indeed, she was rejected without even confessing, and that was the worst thing that could happen. In the end, he just saw her as a friend. That was the only logical answer for his behavior. Looking down, she grabbed her blouse bar, fighting to control her outburst and growing tears. Taking a deep breath, to at least calm down for the time being, she walked past him without even looking back. Let's go. It's almost time we show to you what we wished for, was all Vital said while letting him behind. Gohan had seen her face as she went past him. It was clear that he broke something inside her, and his heart sank at it. She was hurt, but so was he, and in the end, he just wished he did the right thing. The walk was short, but for them it was painful. Vital kept walking ahead, and Gohan behind in silence. His eyes never let go of her back as he was thinking about what happened. Would it be better to hear what she wanted to say? He was already having an inner conflict about his way of doing things. Anyway, now he couldn't hear it. It wasn't right to ask her once he was the one who stopped her speech. They reached the others not long after, both doing their best to fake smiles. So, can you fly now? Sharpener asked, and Vital nodded. Can you show us? Both blondes smiled widely at her, but both noticed that something was wrong. Not now. Vital looked away from them. She just couldn't think of a happy moment with Gohan now, after being rejected like that. At the moment, all she could think was that he was an idiot. Gohan looked at her with the corner of his eyes, changing to the grass right after. Arasa and Sharpener, and Kuririn of course, looked to the awkward teenagers and tried to understand what happened between those two, with no success. It was clear that they didn't want to talk about that for the moment, so they let the subject drop. Then, Gohan noticed something odd about that night. He didn't remember for how long the night had been so bright. He frowned as he could even see clearly the grass under his feet. Hey, where is this light? He turned slowly to the source of it, wishing immediately that he didn't coming from. What he saw was a giant full moon illuminating the night sky. His heart stopped beating for a moment, just to start again in a fast performance. It was like all his blood froze for a second, while his eyes absorbed the moonlight, just to boil right after in a hurried performance. He wanted to look away from the moon, but he just couldn't. His eyes were locked in it and he was doing his best to not change into something that he'd not be able to control. He didn't remember that this was so fast. This is what we wished for, Arasa said happily, turning to see his surprised face, but what she saw was a desperate and stuck Gohan. His eyes were wide open, his breath fast and rushed, and he seemed terrified by the sight of the moon. Gohan. Everyone looked at him and got worried. One a lot more than the others. Kuririn observed how tense the boy was, and by the way he was acting, and sweating, he could swear he was going to turn into the well-known giant ape. But he wouldn't, right? He didn't even have a tail anymore. For his surprise, Gohan spoke with a strange sound, his voice deep, as if it was an animal growl. Kuririn. Gohan could feel his muscles aching, his body was begging for the change that he was trying so hard to control with no avail. It was out of his power and human nature. Take them away. I can't. He couldn't finish as a pain inside his chest made he finally put his eyes away from the brilliant moon, but he knew it was already too late. He fell on his knees, his friends worried at what was happening, but Kuririn couldn't let they get hurt. He was by now panicking. Stay away from him. He put himself in front of his pupils, in a protective manner, making them look at him with wide eyes. Gohan, the tail, where is it? I have to cut it, now. The teenagers now got confused as they didn't understand what their master was talking about. Tail, what was that about? More importantly, what the heck was going on? As if it heard its name, Gohan's tail got free from its own will, waving behind him frantically. His friends widened their eyes and tried to understand where that came from, but it also answered their first question: their friend had a tail. Kuririn took that chance to go and wipe out the brown member, but he was hit by Gohan, who growled while doing so, on the last minute, sending him a few meters away, far from his stunned pupils. He looked up again, just in time to see that it was too late. Gohan's onyx orbs were completely gone, his eyes were all white, an animal feature growing on his human face. Fangs were already coming out and his muscle shapes started to change. Not to mention the growl that he was doing. Get away from him. He yelled at his pupils that seemed to be in shock, making them finally move away from Gohan. Kuririn watched in horror as Gohan let out a guttural yell and his body started, what seemed, the end of the process of change. It all seemed painful to even watch. His clothes were torn by the enormous size he got now, his watch strap broke in the process, making it fall from his now flurry wrist. His scars were still hidden as he wasn't too far from the watch yet, but the ones on his body could be seen clearly between the thick brown fur. His face started to modify drastically, his nose expanded, his shoulders widened, all it making him turn into something that resembled a monkey. When it finally stopped, he yelled. His red eyes showed only angry and, with his fists, he clapped his own chest while looking at the full moon. Oh, was all Kuririn managed to say as he stared at the giant ape in front of them. The teenagers were stunned. What just happened? Why Gohan turned into a giant ape? Then Vital remembered something from a day that seemed too far away. Well, maybe it was some alien who did that for, I don't know, maybe preventing another alien to turn into a giant ape. Oh, my Kami, he was talking about himself. She yelled without noticing, and it surely wasn't a wise thing to do. Gohan turned to them as fast as her voice came out and charged at the group. Kuririn cursed loudly and flew forward. He had to take off that stupid tail. The monk was mad. Why Gohan didn't tell anyone about his tail growing up again? It was the stupidest thing ever. If they knew about it, he wouldn't let his pupils to wish the moon back. He was pushed away from his thoughts as a giant monkey fist aimed his tiny body. With a fast movement he avoided the contact and now was looking right at the huge tail. He formed the Kenzan as fast as possible but again was hit by Gohan, who yelled at the monk right after. It was after sending Kuririn flying away, that Gohan noticed a light coming from the near village. Once more he clapped his chest with his fists and run without thinking twice into that very way. Kuririn got up and used all his speed to try and stop Gohan from reaching it, but again it was no use and he was thrown back to his pupils with an effortless wave of hand. Why is he being like this? Arasa asked desperately as she tried to understand what was happening, while the group went to aid Kuririn. It's not his fault, his alien blood is too strong in this form. He said half a lie. Sure, the Saiyan blood was indeed too strong, but in this form, he went back to the true nature of the warrior race, destroy everything. For some reason he wanted to keep it a secret for now. And as the situation was shocking, they didn't even had time to realize what Kuririn just said, that their friend was a half-alien. Yells and crash sounds made them look to where Gohan was and panic took over them. He wasn't killing, was he? Kuririn gulped and looked at the moon. It was going to be a waste of wish now, but there was no other choice. Getting up he charged the ki blast. Came, Haim, ha. The teenagers widened their eyes once more as the ki power hit the moon, making it explode in an instant. The sound of such explosion got Gohan's attention and he yelled as he started to turn back to normal at the distance. Let's go. Kuririn yelled at the group and started to run to the village. It wasn't too far away from where they were, but it got difficult due to the destruction that Gohan did. Trees were broken in different shapes, even rocks were destroyed, and big footprints that damaged the earth by doing huge craters modified the path. A loud sound made its way to their ears, making the group look up. They saw about a dozen keepers flying to the village at full speed. Shit! Kuririn yelled and speeded up. We need to hurry. Gohan groaned as he slowly came back to his senses. He had a terrible headache, his whole body trembled at the smallest movement and he was shaking. That's why he hated turning into a giant ape, not to mention that the worst part was being unconscious the whole time. He also felt wet, but concluded that it was due to his own sweat. He could hear murmurs a little far from where he was lying down, but couldn't understand none of it. He forced himself to sat up, eyes still closed as he felt dizzy. The murmurs stopped at the same moment he opened his eyes. Shock wasn't the right word to describe what he felt at the very moment he did so. What was on his body wasn't his sweat as he first thought but blood. Around him only had destruction, made by himself in the giant ape form,